I still remember the first time Karen showed up at my front gate. Her manicured fingers, clutching a clipboard like it, was a royal decree. Her designer sunglasses glinted in the afternoon sun, and her lips were pursed so tight you'd think she was trying to keep all her judgment from spilling out at once. I was sitting on my porch, boots kicked up, drinking an iced tea in front of what she so kindly referred to as that trailer. To be fair, yeah, I lived in a double-wide, but it wasn't some busted tin box. I'd renovated it myself, cedar wood siding, a wraparound deck, solar panels, and a little vegetable garden that my late wife and I had started years ago. It was home, humble, quiet, and mine. Karen didn't see that. She saw a trailer. "Excuse me," she said, tapping her clipboard like a teacher about to give detention. "You can't just park that thing here. This is private HOA property." I set my drink down. "Morning to you too, ma'am," I said, calm as I could. "I'm not parked. I live here." She tilted her head like I'd just spoken a foreign language. "Live here?" "Sir, this is the Maple Creek Estates community. The Homeowners Association has very clear standards for—" She paused to look me up and down. "Residences." I tried not to laugh. "I know exactly where I am. Been here longer than you have, I reckon." Her eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. This entire subdivision was built 8 years ago." "Yep," I said, "and the land was mine 20 years before that." That stopped her. Just for a second. Then the smirk came back. "Well," she said, scribbling something on her clipboard, "I'll be bringing this up at the next HOA meeting. Trailers, no matter how nice you think they are, violate the community aesthetic." Then she turned on her heels and strutted back toward her big white mansion, her little dog prancing behind her like it owned the world. You ever meet someone who walks through life like they've already decided they're better than everyone else? That was Karen, the self-appointed queen of Maple Creek Estates. She didn't even found the HOA. She just took it over. Her mission in life? Maintaining standards. But what she really meant was controlling everyone else. That night I walked down the gravel road, looking at the line of giant houses glowing in the dusk. Maple Creek had once been my family's land, all 200 acres of it. My dad raised cattle here. When he passed, I kept the homestead and sold off parts of the property to developers. Figured it'd give me enough cash to retire and live comfortably. Guess who bought one of those parcels? Karen. She paid close to $1 million for her mansion, sitting right on the soil my father once plowed with his bare hands. Irony's funny that way. A few days later, I got a letter, official-looking, stamped with the Maple Creek HOA seal. It listed violations of community guidelines. Non-compliant residents, unsightly vehicle parking, unapproved exterior, modifications. They even fined me $500. I chuckled reading it. Then I picked up the phone. "Maple Creek HOA office, this is Jessica speaking," a chipper voice answered. "Hey, Jessica," I said. "This is James Parker out on Ridgeview Road. I got a fine in the mail today. That doesn't seem right." "Let me check," she said, typing. "Oh, you're the trailer property?" "Ma'am," I said, "I'm the landowner. That trailer's sitting on my property, not HOA land." She hesitated. "Well, according to our map." "I drew that map," I cut in, "before you all paved a single driveway." Silence. Then quietly, "Oh, I'll bring this up to the board." "Please do," I said, hanging up. A week later, I was the main topic of the HOA meeting, and Karen made sure everyone knew it. I showed up early, wearing jeans, boots, and my old flannel, just to watch her reaction. The room was filled with residents sipping lattes and talking about their lawns. Then she saw me. Her smile froze like it had been flash frozen in an ice storm. "Well," she said loudly, "looks like everyone is welcome tonight. Even guests." "I'm not a guest," I said, taking a seat in the front. "Got an invitation right here." I pulled out their violation letter and set it on the table. Her nostrils flared. "Mr. Parker," she said in that voice people use when they're pretending to be polite, "this is a formal HOA meeting. You can't just—" "I can do whatever I please on my own land, ma'am," I interrupted. That's kind of how ownership works. The room went quiet. Every pair of eyes bounced between us. Karen cleared her throat, straightened her papers, and said, as I was saying, "We have a non-compliant structure affecting the property values of our community." One man raised his hand. Isn't that the old farmhouse lot? The land wasn't part of the HOA purchase, right? Karen shot him a glare sharp enough to cut steel. That's irrelevant. No, it's not, I said. The HOA has no jurisdiction over me or my land. You built your fancy homes around my property. I never signed a single HOA agreement. Karen's face turned red. That can't be right, she muttered. I pulled out a folder. Here's the deed. Recorded in the county courthouse. Signed by my father in 1989. You'll notice that the boundaries stop, right? Before my fence line. I let the papers slide across the table. Karen's hand trembled as she picked them up. The room stayed dead silent except for the faint hum of the AC unit. When the meeting ended, she stormed out without saying a word. But that was far from the end of it. Over the next week, she started a new campaign, gossiping to neighbors, making calls, even snapping photos of my property like she was gathering evidence for the FBI. Then one morning, I found a note on my gate. You're bringing down the neighborhood. Either sell your land or move your trailer. This is your final warning. No signature, but I didn't need one. The perfume smell told me enough. I followed the note and stuck it in my pocket. If Karen wanted a war, she just declared one. That night, I sat on the porch, looking at the stars. My wife, Lily, had passed 5 years ago, but I still talk to her sometimes, especially when life got heavy. Guess we got a storm coming, hun, I whispered. But I ain't backing down. Not this time, because what Karen didn't know was that her $1 million mansion and half the street she ruled like a queen stood on leased land that I still owned beneath her manicured lawns and white fences. And the lease? It was up for renewal next month. The morning after I found that note on my gate, I brewed a strong cup of coffee and stared out over the land. The fog sat low on the ground, rolling between the trees like smoke from a slow-burning fire. Everything around here used to be wide-open fields, cows, old fences, the sound of cicadas in summer. Now it was rows of luxury homes with identical mailboxes and HOA, regulations thicker than a phone book. I didn't hate progress. What I hated was arrogance. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules, she was enforcing her ego. But she'd made one mistake. She forgot to check who owned the ground she walked on. I went into town that day to see my attorney, Hank. He'd been my dad's lawyer before me, a man who still wore cowboy boots, with his suits and kept his office smelling like cedar and coffee. Haven't seen you in a while. James, Hank said, looking up from his paperwork. What brings you in? Trouble with the HOA again? I grinned. You could say that. Seems the new president's got a problem with my home. Called it a trailer, wants me gone. Hank chuckled, shaking his head. They always forget who owns the land, don't they? Yeah, I said, leaning on his desk. The lease agreement we made with the Maple Creek developers, it's still set to expire next month, right? He pulled open a file drawer and flipped through some folders. Sure is, and guess what? You still hold the mineral rights and full renewal authority. You could renew it, sell it, or terminate it entirely. I smiled. That's what I thought. He looked up, his eyebrows raised. You planning something? Let's just say I'm tired of being treated like dirt by folks living on my dirt. That night, I made copies of every document, deeds, maps, lease agreements, everything that proved I still owned most of the ground beneath. Maple Creek Estates. Then I waited. Because sometimes the best revenge is patience. A week later, the HOA sent another letter. This time, it wasn't just a fine. It was an eviction notice and claiming I was violating community integrity and had 30 days to vacate. They even used legal language. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. An eviction notice on my own land. Karen must have thought she'd scored the final blow, but really, she'd just handed me the perfect setup. I decided to pay her a visit. It was a sunny Saturday morning, HOA prime time. Neighbors were trimming hedges, kids were riding bikes, and Karen was in her front yard supervising 2 landscapers like she was directing a Broadway show. When she saw me walking up the sidewalk, her smile vanished. Oh no, she muttered. What do you want now? Just came to talk, I said. You sent me an eviction notice. Her lips twisted into a grin. You finally got it? Good. Maybe you'll move somewhere more appropriate. This neighborhood isn't a trailer park. I took a deep breath. Karen, I don't think you understand how any of this works. I understand perfectly, she snapped. Your eyesore violates the community's image. Property values are dropping. People are complaining. Funny, I said, because you're the only one who's ever complained to me. Her nostrils flared. I represent the homeowners. We're united on this. Then maybe you should tell the homeowners something important, I said, lowering my voice. They don't actually own all this. She blinked. Excuse me? This land, I said, pointing down. All this perfect green grass, your white fences, that fancy fountain you love so much, it's all sitting on land leased from me. Her laugh was sharp and fake. You're bluffing. Am I? I said, pulling out a folded document. Take a look. She didn't reach for it, but I could see the curiosity fighting through her pride. This lease expires next month, I continued. And renewal isn't automatic, which means, technically speaking, I could revoke it. Then all this, I gestured around at her mansion, would be sitting illegally on my property. She stared at me, her face draining of color. You're lying, she whispered. Why don't you check with your real estate agent? I said, or the county records. It's public info. Then I handed her the paper. You might want to read that before sending me any more eviction notices. I turned to walk away, and that's when she called out, her voice cracking. You can't do that. I looked back. Oh, but I can. And the best part? I wasn't planning to. Not until you made this personal. By Monday morning, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. Word spreads fast when a queen starts to panic. Karen called an emergency HOA meeting, but this time she wasn't smiling. Her perfect blonde hair was tied too tight, her voice a little too high. This man, she said, waving my documents in the air, is trying to blackmail us. He's threatening the integrity of our community. I stood up from the back row. Actually, ma'am, I'm just reminding you of the facts. I've never asked for a dime, never interfered with your rules. You came after me, not the other way around. The room murmured. A few homeowners exchanged nervous glances. One man spoke up. Wait, is it true? You own the land? I nodded. Not all of it, but enough to matter. About 60 acres under Phase 2, including your house, and yours and yours. I pointed to 3 different homeowners. Karen slammed her palm on the table. This is absurd. The developer told us. The developer leased it from me, I said, cutting her off. Didn't sell it. I own the mineral rights, the water rights, and the renewal terms, which means you've all been paying HOA, dues to manage land that technically isn't yours. A stunned silence filled the room. After that meeting, things changed fast. Karen started calling lawyers. She stopped waving at neighbors. Her morning walks turned into rushed power strides, her little dog trotting behind her like it knew something was wrong. But the damage was already done. People were furious, not at me, but at her. Why didn't you tell us? One woman shouted at Karen during the next HOA meetup. You made us fine him! You made us vote on fake rules! Karen tried to defend herself, but it was too late. The queen was falling, and everyone could see the crown slipping. One evening, as I was watering my garden, Karen showed up again. But this time there was no clipboard, no sunglasses, just a tired woman holding a folder. She stood at my fence for a long moment before speaking. James, she said quietly, I checked the county records. And? I asked, setting down my hose. She swallowed. You were right. About everything. For the first time, she didn't sound condescending, just small. I didn't know, she said. The developer never told us the land was leased. I thought we owned it outright. I nodded. I believe you. But ignorance doesn't excuse how you treated me. Her eyes welled up a little. I'm sorry. It wasn't much, but it was something. That night I sat on my porch again, the sun dipping low behind the hills. The crickets were out, and the air smelled like rain. For the first time in months, the neighborhood was quiet. But something told me Karen wasn't done yet. Pride like hers doesn't die easy, and when the renewal deadline came due, she'd have one last card to plan. 3 weeks. That's all the time that stood between Karen and a truth she couldn't control. The lease renewal. The closer the date got, the more frantic she became. I'd see her driving back and forth from town, stacks of papers on her passenger seat. Sometimes she'd stop by the end of my driveway, stare at my place for a long minute, then speed off. She wasn't the queen anymore. She was a soldier fighting a losing war. One morning, I was fixing a loose step on my porch when my phone rang. It was Hank, my lawyer. "Morning, James," he said. "You'll never guess who just called me." I smirked. "Let me take a wild guess. Blonde hair, fake smile, loves clipboards." He chuckled. "Bingo. She wanted to negotiate a lease renewal for the HOA. Of course she did. She also wanted to include some creative terms, like forcing you to upgrade your home or move to another lot." I laughed, shaking my head. "So even after everything, she's still trying to control me?" "Looks that way." "Then she's about to get a lesson she won't forget," I said. "Tell her I'll handle the renewal in person." At the next HOA meeting, the day of the meeting, the Maple Creek clubhouse was packed. Every homeowner was there, and everyone knew what was coming. I walked in wearing a clean button-up, jeans, and my old cowboy boots. Karen sat at the front of the room, her posture stiff, eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. Her folder was stuffed full of papers. When I entered, the chatter died down. "Evening, folks," I said. "Appreciate y'all coming out. I'm here to discuss the land lease renewal, and to clear the air once and for all." Karen stood up immediately. "Before we begin," she said, her voice shaky but trying to sound firm, "I'd like to thank Mr. Parker for being willing to negotiate. The HOA has prepared a fair proposal." "Hold up," I said, raising a hand. "We'll get to that. But before any talk of fair, I think everyone deserves to know what's really going on." A murmur rippled through the crowd. I pulled out a rolled-up map and spread it across the table. "This here's the original property plat. My father's land, 200 acres stretching from the creek to the ridge." I pointed to the highlighted section. "Everything inside this yellow border? That's still under my ownership." Heads craned forward. A few gasps broke out. "That includes roughly 60% of Maple Creek estates, homes, lawns, driveways, and that lovely clubhouse you're sitting in right now." Karen swallowed hard. "You're trying to scare people," she said weakly. "You wouldn't actually scare you?" "No. Educate you?" "Absolutely," I said. "See, the original developer signed a 30-year land lease with me. It's set to expire this month. When it does, I can renew it, or I can terminate it. And if I terminate, every structure on my land reverts to me by law until it's cleared or repurchased." A man in the back raised his hand. "Wait, you mean you could take our homes?" "Not exactly," I said. "But I could revoke the right to occupy them. And yes, that would technically make your houses trespassing structures." A wave of shocked murmurs filled the room. Karen's hands trembled on the table. "Now," I continued, "I had no intention of pulling that trigger. Until some folks decided I didn't belong here. Until someone called my home an eyesore and sent me threats to move off my own land." Karen's face flushed crimson. She didn't meet my eyes. "So," I said, folding my arms, "we've got two choices. I can renew the lease, under new terms that actually protect me this time, or I can let it expire. Your call." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Karen. She stood slowly, gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "James," she said, her voice trembling, "I made a mistake." "A big one. I let pride get in the way. I thought I was protecting our neighborhood, but really I was just protecting my own ego. That was the first time she'd said anything real." "I don't expect forgiveness," she went on, "but I'm asking for a chance to fix it." I studied her for a moment. Her tone wasn't fake this time. The queen was gone. Just a woman standing in front of her neighbors, stripped of power. "All right," I said finally. "Then here's the deal." I slid a new document across the table. "This is the new lease agreement. You'll all keep your homes and your HOA can stay. But there are a few conditions." She hesitated before picking it up. "Conditions?" "Yep," I said, ticking them off on my fingers. 1, you'll stop harassing me about my property. 2, you'll officially remove my land from HOA oversight. No fines, no letters, no nonsense. 3, you'll create a community fund to help maintain the old trails and creek, the ones your construction nearly buried. My wife used to walk there every morning before she passed. I want them restored." Karen looked down at the paper, then back at me. "That's fair. And one more thing," I said. "You're going to stand up right here and tell everyone the truth. That you were wrong. That I was within my rights the whole time." Her eyes flickered, pride fighting humility one last time. Then she nodded. "All right. She turned to the room, voice quivering but steady. "I owe everyone here and Mr. Parker's an apology," she said. I let my judgment cloud my decency. I saw something that didn't fit my image of perfection, and I treated it like a threat. But the truth is, James has more right to this place than any of us. Without him, Maple Creek wouldn't even exist. You could have heard a pin drop. She took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, James, truly." I nodded slowly. "Apology accepted." The room erupted in quiet applause. Even I didn't expect that. After the meeting, people came up to shake my hand, asking questions about the land, the history of my wife's garden. For the first time in years, I felt like part of the community again. Not the outsider in the trailer, but the man who'd built the ground beneath their dreams. Karen stayed behind as everyone left. She lingered by the table, staring down at the new lease. "You could have destroyed me," she said softly. "All of us." "Maybe," I said. "But my dad always told me our power's not about what you can do. It's about what you choose not to." She smiled faintly, tears welling up again. "You really loved this land, didn't you?" "With everything I had," I said. "And I'm not about to let ego poison it." She nodded. "Then I'll do my part. Starting now." The following week, construction trucks arrived, not to build more mansions, but to restore the old walking trails. Karen organized volunteers. Kids painted benches, neighbors planted flowers, and someone even built a wooden sign that said, "Lily's Trail, in honor of love that stood its ground." When I saw it, I had to sit down on the grass for a while, the kind of silence that hits you when your heart's too full to speak. Months passed, and Maple Creek slowly changed. The HOA got new leadership, less rules, more heart. Karen stepped down, choosing instead to lead the community garden project. And every once in a while, she'd stop by my porch with a pie or a cup of coffee. We never became best friends, but there was peace between us. Respect. One afternoon, she said, "You know, I used to think control meant strength. Turns out it just means fear." I smiled. "Yeah, real strength's knowing when to let go." That fall, the air turned crisp and the leaves painted the hills red and gold. I sat on my porch, same spot as always, watching families walk the restored trail. Kids laughing, dogs barking, wind moving through the trees. It felt like the land was alive again. And for the first time since Lily passed, I felt something like joy. They say land can be owned, but it can't be tamed. Maybe that's true. But I think people are the same way. You can't force them into boxes or judge them by what they live in. Because respect isn't about where you live. It's about how you live. And sometimes, the humblest home stands on the strongest ground. A month later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, neat cursive. It was from Karen. "Dear James, I wanted to thank you again, not just for your patience, but for the lesson you taught me. I was so busy trying to protect an image that I forgot what community means. Now I know better. I hope Maple Creek continues to be worthy of the land it's built on. Sincerely, Karen." I smiled, folded it carefully, and placed it in Lily's old recipe box. Because some things, like forgiveness, belong somewhere safe. That night, I looked out at the porch light glowing on my cedar siding. The same trailer she once mocked. It wasn't just a home anymore, it was proof.